There are some things that I think everybody should know before owning a reptile. In today's video, we're gonna go through and talk about some of those things. My name is Pierce LaValle, this is Pierce's Planet, stick around. Yo, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I want to start this video off by just saying I hope everybody is doing well. I hope everybody is staying safe. California has been hit with some major fires this past week, and my second hometown of Vacaville has been hit really hard. I know people who have, lost loved ones in these fires. I know people who have lost their houses in these fires. Fortunately for myself, it hasn't really affected me as much here in Sacramento, except for just the tremendous amount of smoke that has been up in the air. It's a sucky situation to be in. We had some record highs in heat mixed with a random thunderstorm and lightning, which just caused these massive fires, and my heart goes out to everybody who's being affected by it. All the wildlife that is being trapped in these fires, all the domestic livestock and animals that people had to leave behind or that are getting trapped in these fires. It's a horrible situation. So I hope everybody is staying safe, and we're gonna get through this together. So keep California in your thoughts, everybody. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about what I think you should know before owning a reptile. And let me just start off by saying, no reptile compares to a bird. You see, this is it. This is it. Hey, get off my head. It's not your video today. It's not your video today. It's the reptile's turn. This is not your video today. Trust me, you'll have your own video. Oh, I have a lot I could say about you. I know, but you're so cute. All right, so let's just get right into it. One of the first things you should know before owning a reptile is yes, they do bite. It's one of the main questions that gets asked. Does this reptile bite? Have you ever been bitten? And the real answer is, yeah. I mean, anything with a mouth can bite you. Your dog can bite you. Your cat could bite you. Your hamster could bite you.
Let me at him! Die! Easy, Rhino.
Anything that has teeth and has a mouth has the potential to bite you. So how do you avoid that? Well, you choose a reptile species that's known to be more docile. Just like there's different breeds of dogs that are known to be more or less aggressive, there's different types of snakes and lizards that are known to be more or less aggressive. Something like a ball python, like Penny here, is going to be a lot more docile generally than something like, say, a yellow anaconda. Now, that's not to say that every yellow anaconda you're going to encounter is going to be a mean snake, or that every ball python that you're going to encounter is just going to be super nice and docile, but in general, that's how it works. Now, just like dog breeds as well, it depends on the owner. If I have a snake, whether it's a ball python or whatever, and I leave it in its cage and I only interact with it when I'm giving it food, then more than likely that animal is going to be a little bit more aggressive or defensive than an animal that I take out all the time and hold all the time and interact with all the time. And that's the case with a lot of animals and a lot of pets. When you're talking about dogs, pit bulls get a horrible reputation. But majority of the time, I'd say probably about 99% of the time, the owner is the main problem. The owner is the one that neglects that animal. The owner is the one that abuses that animal. And if that animal is raised properly and raised in a loving household, it's not going to turn out bad majority of the time. With saying that, I did want to also throw in there that, in my opinion, reptiles are never tame. You might hear me use that word sometimes to describe some of my nicer animals that they're really tame, they're puppy dog tame. But that's more of a figure of speech. And in reality, reptiles are never truly tame. They just learn to tolerate us. And they learn that us as their keepers, we're not a threat to them anymore. So they're a little bit more comfortable with being held. I like to use the word they're docile. They're reluctant to bite. These are wild animals. These are not animals that have been domesticated for thousands of years like dogs and cats. These are wild animals. A lot of these animals that you see in the pet trade have been taken directly from the wild for the pet trade. And the ones who have been, captive born or captive bred, they've only been captive bred for maybe a couple of generations. Another thing I think you should know before owning a reptile is that they're smarter than you think they are. Reptiles have this reputation of just being dumb, just being really, really primitive, really instinctual animals. And you might have heard the phrase having a reptilian brain or using your reptilian brain. That's really not the case. I mean, these animals are pretty intelligent animals. As far as snakes go, snakes are escape artists. Snakes learn how to get out of their cage, and they can repeat that behavior over and over and over again. My Mexican black king snake has gotten out multiple times now. I've had to put a bunch of tape on the lid, and somehow he's finding out new ways how to get out of his cage. Penny here has also escaped from her cage. Luckily, I'm in a room. The reptile room is pretty secure and they can't get out of the reptile room, so I was able to find them. But they are pretty smart animals when you think about it. There's also some lizards that can learn their name and that can recognize their keepers and will come when their keeper calls them.
Come on, buddy. Come on, buddy. Come on, buddy.
I mean, these animals are not as stupid as a lot of people think. And so that's something you got to remember, because when you're putting them in their cage and you just think, oh, well, it's just a snake, so all I need to do is put it on newspaper and give it a hide and it's good. And in some cases, things like newspaper and just really basic setups might work and it might be okay. But for the most part, I really think you should just give these animals enrichment, because I think they enjoy that. And I think there's a little bit more than meets the eye when it comes to these animals and their intelligence. Another thing you should know before getting a reptile, and it might be obvious for most people, but some people might not know, is that they're cold-blooded. And for those of you who don't know what cold-blooded means, cold-blooded really just means that they can't regulate their own body temperature like a person or a dog or mammals can. They need heat from the sun to warm them up, and they need the shade or a different area to go to cool down. So a rule of thumb for myself is, if I'm cold in my house, then that means my reptiles are probably cold in my house. You want to make sure you provide your reptile with heat, and make sure that you have a temperature gradient in their enclosure so that your reptile can choose to heat up if it wants to and can choose to cool down when it wants to. Now in my reptile room, I keep a constant temperature of 80 degrees in the room at all times. Now that might not be possible for everybody, so just make sure you have that heating for your reptiles, and they'll do fine. Another thing that you should know before owning a reptile is that they have the potential to get expensive. Now that depends on what kind of reptile you have, what you plan on getting. Something like a ball python isn't going to be too expensive in the long run, but if you have something like a monitor lizard, that is going to get very, very, very expensive. So that's all relative to what you have, but the initial cost can be quite a bit when you're talking about the cage, the substrate, the animal itself, the heating, the food, the water dish, the decorations for inside. It can run you up a bit of a tab at times. So that's just something to be aware of. Obviously, the more you have, the more expensive it's going to be, especially when it comes to your electricity bill. Trust me, that's no fun. For the most part, I will say that lizards tend to cost a lot more than snakes do, based off of the fact that snakes really only have to eat about once a week, whereas lizards eat almost every day to every other day. Something like a leopard gecko or ball python, they aren't gonna cost you too much money. Whereas your bigger snakes or your monitor lizards or even a bearded dragon might cost you a little bit more. So something else I think you should know before owning a reptile is you need to have the time to take care of them. Reptiles, in terms of pets, I don't think take as much of your time as something as, say, like a dog or a cat, or especially a bird. But they do take some time. You do need to spend some time giving it water. You will have to change its substrate every once in a while. You will have to clean the cage every once in a while, clean poop out of the cage. If you want to have a nicer, more docile animal, you'll have to spend time handling it and building that relationship and that bond with it. And so that can be a little bit time consuming. Now, I think that reptiles are a little bit more reasonable to have if you have a 9-to-5 job than say something like a mammal, like a cat or a dog. But that doesn't mean you can just completely neglect them. They do require some care. So that's just something that I think people should know, because I feel like a lot of reptiles and snakes get neglected because people don't think they need to do anything with them and they can just kind of leave them there and just whatever. But no, it takes some time. You want to make sure you're regulating the temperatures. You're checking the temperatures every day. You want to make sure that your animal's getting fed. You want to make sure that they're getting the water they need, the humidity. You might have to spray the cage. You're gonna have to clean out the cage. Just different things that come with being a reptile keeper. Another thing that I think is one of the most important things that you need to know about owning reptiles is that they are a long-term investment. For the most part, reptiles are not very short-lived animals. Majority of the reptiles that I come across live 20+ years, with the exception of chameleons who only live about 5 years. But for the most part, this is a long-term investment. They're gonna outlive, your dogs. They'll outlive in some cases, some reptiles can outlive you. I mean, these are not animals that you think you're just going to buy because you see them and they look cool one day and then they're gonna be dead within 2-3 years. I mean, some tortoise species will actually outlive you. They'll live to be 150 years old. An insane number. There's, majority of the snakes I have are going to live to be 25 to 30 years old. It's not fair to the animal for someone to go and get it because it looks cool and not realize how long they live for, and 5 years later they don't want it anymore, so they just give it away or release it or do whatever. It's not fair to the animal. So that's one of the most important things I think you should know about owning a reptile is this is not just some throwaway pet. So when you get a reptile, be ready to put in the time and be ready to dedicate a part of your life to that animal when you get it. And last but not least, the absolute most important thing I think you should know about owning reptiles: they're worth it. They are completely worth it. I know we kind of went through some things and some of the things might have seemed a little negative about them, but overall, reptiles are so worth it as pets. Despite all the things that we talked about today, I honestly do believe they are a lot less work than owning a dog or a cat, and especially a bird. They really are, and they are such rewarding pets. When you can hand them off to somebody and show that person that animal is friendly and is not gonna bite them, it's just a really rewarding experience. And I mean, they're just cool. Reptiles are just some of the coolest animals in the world and some of the most interesting animals in the world. I mean, they've survived for millions of years based off of these adaptations that they still use today. And honestly, I really encourage everybody, if you love animals or if you're thinking about getting a pet, really seriously consider getting a reptile. They are just amazing. They're not just some simple savage creatures that a lot of people make them out to be. I just want everybody to experience the same feeling of joy and happiness that I have experienced since I was a little kid when it comes to holding these animals and interacting with these animals, it's an amazing experience that you can't get with anything else. So that's why I think the number one thing you should know before owning a reptile is that they are completely worth it, and I encourage everybody to just get out of their comfort zones and try it for themselves. So that is it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. What did you guys think about the video? Do you guys agree with what I talked about? Do you guys disagree? Let me know in the comments. Make sure you guys like, make sure you guys subscribe and hit that notifications button so that you guys will know every time that I drop a new video. And make sure you guys share this video. Bring some people over here. Let's start a conversation about these topics. Until next time, everybody, my name's Pierce LaValle. This is Pierce's Planet, and remember, it's all about the reps, baby. Peace. Yeah, I'm talking about you. Yeah, I'm talking about you. And I just gotta say it. Ah! See, don't do that. Today's video, we're going to go through and talk about some of those things. There are some things that, and when you can show them to people and educate them there's different breeds of dogs that are known to be more or less aggressive. There's different breeds of snakes